The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Winnipeg's mayor is once again calling the province to call a public inquiry into the real estate scandals at City Hall. The fact that the construction of Winnipeg's police headquarters, our police headquarters, is still under criminal investigation by the RCMP speaks volumes about the depths of problems that were at City Hall. It seems to me, Madam Speaker, that the fact that there is an RCMP investigation is more reason to have a public inquiry, not less. But, Madam Speaker, the RCMP will only tell us if charges are warranted. We still won't fully understand what made it possible for all these things to happen without people knowing about it. The Minister of Finance was a Minister of EPC at the time. He did the right thing and resigned. An inquiry could explain how someone with the insight and ability of the Minister of Finance could be deceived for so long. The NDP never called an inquiry into Crocus, Madam Speaker. Will the Premier follow in their footsteps or do the right thing and call an inquiry?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, I do sincerely appreciate any question from a Liberal member on the rule of law, Madam Speaker. As the member noted in his interesting preamble, this is a police investigation and it is underway. The member has now just advocated that he would like to see a concurrent public inquiry running in tandem with police investigation. I think we, at this point in time, certainly believe that the police investigation should be allowed to run its course, and if subsequent actions are required, we will most certainly be taking those.
Here. The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We all know the Premier's always easily distracted by what's going on elsewhere in Canada, but he's not paying attention to what's going on in his own backyard. One of the challenges the Mayor of Winnipeg discussed was that Manitoba needs to update its conflict of interest and ethics laws. As the Conflict of Interest Commissioner said, we have the oldest and weakest conflict of interest laws in Canada. For example, the Premier has no legal obligation to disclose that he owns 2 corporations in an offshore tax haven. The problem at the City of Winnipeg would have their root in inadequate and weak provincial legislation. Is this government going to bring in and pass effective conflict of interest legislation for the province and municipalities before the next election?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, the member is like the little kid, Madam Speaker, that goes under the Christmas tree and tears through the wrapping paper to find out what the present is and then starts screaming that he wants it. We've already said we're going to be proceeding with the legislation he now requests. I guess he just wants credit for us doing what we already said we're going to do, Madam Speaker.
Here. The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, we've been steadfast in calling for the creation of an independent Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. Our current Conflict of Interest Commissioner is one of the only ones in Canada who has no powers of investigation. Manitoba needs an independent watchdog with bark and bite, and we need rules, due process, and to make sure the punishment fits the crime. The Premier, once again, has an MLA whose disgusting behaviour would have been kept secret until it ended up in the newspaper. It's pretty clear that the no wrong door and sensitivity training isn't working. The Premier's refusal to deal with these issues is sending a message to his own caucus, which is that as long as they keep their mouths shut, they can get away with it. How is this any different than what the NDP did for so many years?
The Honourable First Minister.
Madam Speaker, we've, as a government, taken steps which actually put us in a position to say, quite honestly, we are leading the country in making improvements in terms of reducing cases or incidences of harassment and offensive behavior in our workplace. Where the previous government covered things up for a decade, we deal with issues professionally within days. That is the approach that needs to be taken, and also the confidentiality of those who are launching those concerns needs to be respected, and that is why we have laws under workplace health and safety that we must follow in respect of how these issues are handled, not internally, but in terms of disclosure. This puts us in the position of looking like we're covering something up, but Madam Speaker, I recognize that we have to accept the fact that if we're dealing with these issues professionally and appropriately, we have to be open to criticism such as the member has just launched without justification or without fairness.
Here.